Key. An entity class may have a large number of entities. The recognition of single entity or group of entities in an entity class is very important. Look at the entity class student as shown. If it requires to know the program of a student, it becomes necessary to recognize the individual entity. Similarly, if it is required knowing all students belonging to city Peshawar, the group based on city becomes necessary to recognize. The key could be used to recognize the individual or group of entities in an entity class. Now it is time to define key. A key is a single attribute or a group of attributes used to recognize individual entity or group of entities in an entity class. For example, in entity class student, attribute registration number could be used to recognize an individual entity. Similarly, attribute city could be used to know the list of students belonging to Peshawar. Let us discuss key in more detail by discussing various types of keys. These are primary key. It is a single attribute used to recognize an entity in an entity class. For example, in entity class student, the attribute registration number is a primary key. The primary key attribute is represented as underline. Now a question arises. Why attribute registration number is chosen as primary key? This can be clarified by discussing characteristics of attribute to be selected as primary key. These are: number 1, it is always defined. Number 2, it is only one. Number 3, it has unique value for every instance, and number 4, it must have a value. Composite key. It is group of attributes used to recognize single entity in an entity class. Thus, a composite key is basically a primary key composed of more than one attributes. For example, consider the entity class student as shown. In this example, any of the attribute cannot be used as primary key as duplication exists, which is not allowed in case of primary key. Combining different attributes whose collective value shall recognize the single entity in an entity class can solve this problem, such as roll number plus shift recognize single entity in entity class student. Now let us discuss the characteristics of composite key, which are: number 1, it is always defined. Number 2, it is only one. Number 3, the collective value must be unique for every instance. Number 4, the value of attributes of composite key is mandatory. Alternate key. It is single attribute other than the primary key used to recognize single entity in an entity class. It is also called candidate key. Consider the example as shown. The attribute passport number is an alternate key by assuming that attribute registration number is defined as primary key. The characteristics of alternate key are: number 1, it is not defined. Number 2, the value of attribute to be used as alternate key must be unique value for every entity instance. Number 3, the value is not mandatory. Secondary key. It is a single attribute or group of attributes used to recognize group of entities in an entity class. Consider the entity class student as shown. The attribute city can be used as secondary key, knowing all the students belonging to Peshawar. Any part of the composite key can also be used as secondary key. For example, in the entity class student as shown, the attribute shift can be used as secondary key, knowing all the students of morning shift or evening shift. The characteristics of secondary key are: number 1, it is not defined. Number 2, it may be more than one. Number 3, the primary key or composite key cannot be used as secondary key. And number 4, any part of the composite key can be used as secondary key. Sort key. It is a single attribute or group of attributes used to organize and access group of entities efficiently. Consider the example as shown. If it is required to access all students belonging to Islamabad, the search is started from first entity and continues sequentially till the end of entities. All the entities matching the criteria are accessed. It takes long time and all the entities must be read and compared against the desired access. This longer access can be made efficient by organizing the entities by desired attribute such as city in student entity class. The organized entities are shown as: now if it is required to access all students belonging to Islamabad, the search is started from first entity and continues sequentially till the last matching entity. All the entities matching the criteria are accessed. The remaining entities are not searched for desired entities, as there is no chance for such existence. Dear learners, remember that only secondary key attribute can be used as sort key.